What's up, everybody? This is Karen Bagley, owner of Significant Moments Photography, and I am back for part 2, but this time we are going to talk about what not to do during your IPS session. Now, if you're curious about what IPS is for photographers, it's in-person sales. You might want to check out my other video that I posted before this just to kind of catch up if you're wondering what I'm talking about. But this time we're focusing on what not to do. Alrighty, so let's dive right into what we are not wanting to do if we are doing an IPS session. So for those of you who are catching this video, you might want to catch the one right before this, where I'm talking about in-person sales sessions, how to host them, kind of what to expect. And the reason why I started talking about in-person sales sessions as a photographer is because I realized there were so many photographers out there who were wanting to go from a shoot and burn, or what I like to call a shoot and sell, lifestyle, which is where they just photograph, they have their session, and they send all of the digital files, to actually selling product, heirlooms, things that this family is going to be able to pass down for generations to come, albums, wall art. And when I first posted that video, that shoot and burn video, that's been several years ago now, I had so many questions. So the video before this one, I kind of addressed some of those questions and basically walked through, how to kind of get started with IPS, the things that I do, how I was able to get my sales through the roof. And again, that's not to be salesy or braggadocious. That's just truly the case. I was able to go from making a couple $100s to making thousands. And that was all because of IPS. So if you're not familiar with IPS, it's in-person sales session. And again, this is what photographers do to sell their images or help their clients pick how they want to display their artwork that was taken during their session. So this go around, if you will, is going to be what not to do during an IPS or an in-person sales session as a photographer. So right out of the gate, we're going to talk about money, okay? I know it can be uncomfortable. I know that it can be a little awkward, but here's the truth. If we are not transparent with our clients, right out of the gate, we're kind of starting off on the wrong foot. Be transparent. I did talk about this in my first video on just, kind of how to set up being an IPS photographer. But what I really want to talk about on this one is no hidden fees. No, I don't want you having, if you purchase this album, it's also going to cost X, Y, and Z because we're having it shipped and we're doing this. Have everything at a very simple, basic one number. It's too complicated to start adding fees. And not only that, but it's going to frustrate your clients. I want you to go ahead and factor in not only your cost of doing business, but the cost of your artwork all together in one fee, so that way you're not tacking on things. I mean, taxes is bad enough as it is, right? Adding taxes at the end is bad enough. So we just want our products to have one number to them. Now, of course, there is always exceptions to the rule. So of course there's upgrades to items, right? So for example, having my acrylic wall art, you can always upgrade to have an aluminum backing, just in the case that if you're ordering like a really, really large print, that it doesn't bow over time. Now, of course, the aluminum backing does cost more for me to order. So if that's something that a client wants, they of course would upgrade to have that there. But what you don't want to do is not tell your clients about any fees that are associated with their order. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute. What is this fee? What is this? So a good example of this is like a session fee. So another question that I did receive when I first did this video years ago was, how do I price my session fees versus my products? And of course, guys, you have to remember, I've been in business for a very long time. When I first started, my session fee was like $150. Now they start at $550. This is not an area where you are looking to make money. One of the questions that I had was, well, what do I do if they come in, they pay the session fee, and then they don't order anything? Well, in that case, you're going to have to put a minimum order that they're going to have to actually spend with you. And it's got to be everywhere. It's going to have to be in your contract. It's going to have to be on your website. just so that the clients coming in realize that you have certain standards. So that should really, and it's happened to me. It typically only takes like 2 times for something to happen to me before I realize that something needs to be adjusted. But back to, not having anything hidden. So a lot of questions that I get from potential clients is, well, I want my significant other to be in, my session with me. Is that more? No, it's not more. When I am factoring out my session fees, I am including if they are going to bring, themselves, obviously, their significant other, maybe their mom, maybe a child. Now, I will say that if there's going to be more than 4 people, then of course my fee will go up, but that's because there is more time involved, right? So if you've got like 3 or 4 kids that you're working with on top of, mom and dad or dad and dad, whoever it is that you're working with, you're going to need more time. So that starting session fee of $550 is an hour and a half of photographing time. And I implore, whoever my client is and their significant other to be a part of it, right? What you don't want to do is say, my session fee is $550, and then let's say they don't bring it up on the initial call, they go ahead and book you, and then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, I want to have, my grandparents and my nieces in it as well. And then you're going to say, oh, well, that's actually going to have to cost more. So basically what I'm telling you is that, because it could happen to anybody, right? This happened to me before. You're asking from the very beginning who all is going to be in your session. And then you need to make sure that you let them know that, hey, this is what my session fee is covering. If it's anything more than that, let me know, because that is going to change the cost, okay? So don't hide anything. Do not be sneaky with pricing that puts you and your client off on the wrong foot. And certainly do not be sneaky when it comes to the product or the prints that they're going to order or that they're going to invest in. So another issue that I hear quite a bit is photographers will complain about a particular client who said that they didn't realize that they had to also invest in artwork. Now, not all of the time, but a lot of the times that blame does actually fall on the photographer in charge. Why? Because I hold them responsible to tell the potential client over and over and over again what their cost is, what the purpose of their session is. If they do have 2 separate fees like I do, session fee and then whatever it is you're going to order, make it clear over and over and over again. That way, should they bring that up and say, well, I had no idea that I also had to order prints. I thought that this included digitals. You can go back and you will have the receipts and say, well, no, I'm not sure how that happened because we discussed it on our initial phone call. The email after you booked said it. Your welcome packet that I sent out also has it in it. And we discussed this at your session, and you also got the pricing after your session took place. So you see what I mean? You want to leave a nice trail of your communication with your potential client. And I will be the first to admit some potential clients hear only what they want to hear, which is why it's even more, it's vital, it's even more important for you to confirm and reconfirm. You might sound like a broken record, but you really, really need to come clear, transparent communication when it comes to your pricing. That is going to be the biggest thing that I'm going to say that you don't want to do for an IPS session. You don't want to get there and then have people or the client or the family of the client or anybody be like, wait, this doesn't come with the session fee. Oh my gosh, that would be absolutely excruciating for both parties, right? Like that's a big awkward situation. So let's avoid that by being transparent from the beginning. And like I mentioned in the previous video, I know it can be really hard and a little nerve-wracking to tell potential clients what your costs are. There really shouldn't be, but I understand. I've been there. Sometimes I'm still there to this day where you kind of feel a little weird about telling your costs. But the truth of the matter is that photography is a service. It's a luxury. So there really should not be any fear on your end when it comes to explaining what your fees are. Sure, there's going to be a lot of comeback. There's going to be a lot of, oh my God, I had no idea, or what, that is too expensive. You're going to get that regardless of the price point that you're at. It's going to happen. So the sooner that we can accept that, the more open we can be about our costs. So when someone kind of like, does the little, like kind of tries to knock me down on my pricing, I just have a very easy, subtle, but strong comeback to say to them, which is, well, I'm a full service custom studio, and anytime you're working with a custom artist, those fees are going to be more expensive. There are plenty of other artists out there that would be willing to photograph you for a fraction of the cost, but it's not going to be the experience that I provide. Very, very simple, direct to the point. Because I believe that the more direct you can be, the more not only that person will likely respect you and just be able to say, well, you know what, you're not in my budget, and hey, we can part ways peacefully. Always be transparent with your pricing, even if it makes you a little nervous to do so. If you need to, practice doing phone calls in the mirror. Practice talking about your pricing so that you can build that confidence in yourself, because you being confident in your pricing is going to help your potential client feel confident, even if you are at a higher price point. If you are at a lower price point, don't feel if you feel any type of way about your pricing that is negative at all, like, oh man, I'm not really worth this, or man, I'm charging too little, it's going to come out and your clients are going to be able to sniff you out. So be confident, but also be very, very transparent. Repeat, repeat, repeat yourself and your costs. Alrighty, our next point is actually at your previews. Well, I call it a preview session, but actually at your IPS session. Please, please, please do not be too salesy. Now, I know that this is going to come off kind of contradictory because that's our job, is to sell, right? That's how we make our money if we're doing the IPS model as photographers. But the thing is, there is such a thing as being able to sell. And really, I don't even look at it as selling. I look at it as I'm helping my clients pick their memories. That's it. Like, I'm helping them decide what's going to look good on a wall and what's going to look good in an album, maybe what's going to be a good digital if they want to print it later. That's what I'm helping them do. We all know what it's like to deal with a really crappy salesperson. Like, I mean, the first thing that pops into my mind is like when we go to purchase a car, right? Oh my goodness. It's the most uncomfortable, awkward, and terrible experience ever, because you feel like this giant amount of pressure, and I don't even know why we as consumers feel pressure, but we do. And that is not exempt from, a client coming in to a preview or an IPS session with a photographer. Do not be too salesy. Now, I can speak on this from personal experience. Why? Because I practice what I preach. I hire other photographers to document myself, my family, all of us, my husband. We actually just booked a photographer to document our dog because she's getting older and we want portraits of her. So I have definitely invested in portraiture. I do not believe in taking pictures of my family myself, of all of us together, just because sometimes I would prefer to outsource that. You know what I mean? I already work and photograph so much and edit so much that I don't want to have to do that with my family. So I outsource. So because I am in this industry and because I speak and teach at these amazing conferences, I have met photographers all across the world. So the beautiful part about that is that I have had the ability to work with some of the most amazing photographers in the industry. The downside to that is that because we're also friends too, you realize that not every photographer keeps that level of friendliness. And honestly, the truth of the matter is my golden rule is never work with friends or family. But the truth of the matter is because we're in the industry and we do know so many photographers, they kind of end up becoming our friends, But when we hired a photographer, and this has probably been maybe a year and a half ago, it was the worst experience that I had had to date with any photographer. I really had never had any issues because I was never asking for it. I'm not that person that's like, I'm a friend, give me a discount. No, because I am a photographer. I know how much work goes into this. So I am absolutely going to pay for my services that I have hired them to do. But a recent session, well, not super recent, but like I said, it's been about a year and a half ago, I had that bad car salesman experience. I had it, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And also because of my personality, because I definitely have that guilt thing going where I'm like, oh God, I feel like I have to go this way, but it's not really what I want at all. And so because I had that experience, it was so awkward and uncomfortable. I felt like I was kind of being taken advantage of a little bit because they knew me, they knew my history, they know how, I run business, and of course, like, their pricing model wasn't the same as mine. And in actuality, like their, price points weren't close to mine either. And their pricing setup, like it would have been cheaper, more cost effective to do, just purchase all of the digitals. But I didn't want to do that. But I was like, man, if I really wanted to, I would save myself a couple $1,000 and just purchase all of the digital files. But of course, I didn't want to do that because in my mind, I don't want to have to print things. That's why I hired someone, was so I didn't really have to do anything. But because we had like history and kind of spoke at the same conferences and knew each other, it was very, very awkward. So I can say both from the photographer standpoint and a consumer standpoint that nobody likes a massive salesman. Nobody wants to walk out of an appointment that's supposed to be enjoyable and just feel drained. You know what I mean? So don't be too salesy. There is a very, very fine line between saying, hey, this is what you want. This is the budget that you have. Let's meet in the middle, okay? Because obviously what you want is outside of your budget, but the budget that you set for yourself was not a realistic standard. And I think, especially some potential clients or some clients really feel like no matter what happens, I'm going to stick inside this budget. Like they set the budget before they even view their images. And that's really, really tricky because it really doesn't have anything to do with you. It's more with them, right? And the perception of how the world views photography. Oh my God, it's more than $200. What? Oh my God, I'm going to spend $4,000. What? Like it's more of how the world perceives photographers and photography in general, that they have an issue with making a larger investment. It has nothing to do with your work. It can have something to do with your experience, but as long as you stay professional, it doesn't have anything to do with your experience. You're not a bad photographer. That's always, where our mind tends to go. But it's very much so having a realistic understanding of your pricing versus what they want. So I can give you a beautiful example. I've had a couple of clients actually that came in and they were like, well, I want everything. And I was like, okay, well, this is what it costs to get everything. And they're like, that's too much. That's outside of my budget. And I said, okay, well, you can do this, which is inside your budget. And they were like, well, that doesn't give me more images. And I'm like, no, it does not. But this is within your budget. And they're like, but I want this. It's very simple. At that point in time, you say, well, if you want everything, this is what it costs. So, that negotiation kind of like energy that some clients bring sometimes, it's very easy to kind of shut that down and be like, listen, I'm on board. If you want everything, here you go. This is what it costs. If you don't want everything, here are options for you that are fabulous options, but you're not going to get everything in it. So it's almost kind of like sometimes people try to negotiate with you a little bit. But don't worry, you can stay in charge of that. And again, that's not being overly salesy. That's you just saying and guiding them, hey, here's your budget. This is what you want. Let's come in the middle. Let's see how we can make your funds work for you so that you can get the most bang for your buck, if you will. Now, I never say that. I never say bang for your buck. I don't like that whatsoever. But what I will say is, let's meet in the middle. Let's hit close to your budget while also giving you more product or more images or whatever it is that they want. That's how we handle sales session. It's not to pressure people. It's not to constantly make people feel like they should get more. You're going to lose the trust and the experience that your client is wanting and looking for. So to keep that relationship positive and on the up and up, we need to help them. We don't need to say, well, you're a bad person if you don't do this. Or, well, if I was you, I wouldn't be able to only pick 10 images for an album. That's not how we go about it. That is not how you have a good experience. And the beautiful thing about my business and my company is that because I am not a very salesy person, I don't call myself a salesman at all, really, because I'm really not. But I have had relationships with clients that have lasted over half of my career, which again, I've been in business for 10 years. So over half of my career, I have the same clients that come back to me. The reason for that is because they can trust me. They know that I'm going to say, hey, here's where your budget is. This is what you kind of are looking for. And let's see how we can make your money work for you. It's very, very simple. If you come in and you have that attitude that they're going to have to spend this much money, or you push things on them, man, this image would look really, really good as a wall art collection, even though they have told you that they don't want any wall art. That's a bad experience. So don't be too salesy. Think of yourself as a guidance counselor, if you will, like an heirloom guidance counselor. Like, I'm here to help you. You tell me what you like, and I will tell you realistically what we can do for you. It's very simple. You don't want to shove anybody into anything. You want to guide them. So don't be salesy. Oh, it's the worst. Don't do it. Right up after that is going to be, don't pin family against each other. Don't let's say it's an expecting mom and her partner. Don't go to the expecting mom and say, well, you should get what you want because you're the one making this baby. You're the one. And then, go to the partner and then be like, oh, well, I just think they're being ridiculous. They should just, don't pin family against one another. Now, guys, don't get confused. There is absolutely a time and a place to step in as a business owner and say, hey, listen, these are your memories. I understand budget is something that is important to you. It's important to everybody. We all have a budget, whether it's, a budget way up here or a budget down a little bit, closer down to here. We all have a budget that we're working with. There is a time and a place to say, well, hey, listen, we spend thousands and thousands of dollars on our vehicles, and our vehicles will last us 10, maybe 15 years if we run that bad boy into the ground. Your memories are going to last you forever. But there's a way to come about that as a very soft, a friend helping you kind of make a decision. What you don't want to do is try to talk to one parent, and normally this happens through email, calls, text before or even after your IPS session has taken place. Don't try to put family against family when it comes to making decisions. Again, it's a really, really bad experience. It's not something that's going to be enjoyable for them. It causes friction not just between the family, but between the family and you. And again, we have to think long term. We are here to build relationships with our clients. We want this relationship to carry out for years, for forever. We love our clients. We want to treat them well. So don't pin people against one another. Now, there are circumstances where, again, let's use the example of an expecting mom and their partner. The expecting mom maybe will say, oh, I just want to do a session by myself. I just want it to be a glam day. Totally fine, absolutely okay. But then they bring their partner with them to the sales session and they have never once discussed pricing with them. Now, that is always a little tricky, but that you kind of remove yourself out of that situation because that's between them two or them three, whoever it is that you're working with. It could be a family. Whoever it is that's they're previewing, that's kind of between them. All you have to say is, well, I made sure to give the pricing guide to your husband, wife, whatever. After our session, I definitely, I called beforehand to ask if they had any questions. We went over it at your pre-session consultation. It was in your email, which again, of course, having those receipts to be able to show the significant other or whoever the family member is that's having problems with it. That way they then realize, oh, it was just my significant other who was not telling me pricing. So that way it's not like, a youth, 3 or however many people there are situation. It's a situation between them into, and you're kind of managing it. So I mentioned also too in my not my very first video, but the video before this one, that I host my in-person sales sessions, my preview sessions in my home. So when I notice that, anyone, whether it be, couples or even just families, two sisters, when I notice that there is a little bit of friction, I will absolutely say, hey, I'm going to go refill on some drinks. Do you guys want anything? So that I can give them some space to kind of talk and discuss. Because the last thing that you want to do is be staring, looking at them, waiting for them to kind of try to talk on this very sensitive subject because the significant other or the sister or the family member or the daughter didn't share pricing with whoever they were supposed to. So yes, this is something that has happened to me. Not a ton, but it's definitely happened. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, it will happen to you. So make sure that you have receipts. Make sure that, again, the transparency and the communication with your client are key when it comes to IPS sessions. That is going to be the biggest thing, but you definitely don't want to pin family against one another. Again, we want it to be a positive experience for them. And if we are secretly messaging or texting or emailing or calling either of the parties that are coming to the preview session, kind of trying to pin one another in that family against each other, that is a no-go. Again, that is an experience that I myself have had with a photographer, and it is awful. So again, from the photography side as well as the consumer side, I can tell you, do not pin family against each other. The best thing for you to do is, again, have the receipts to show. If they're like, wait, I had no idea about this pricing, show the receipt, remind them that they got a pricing, whether it be, an email. In my case, it's print, a pricing guide after their session. We discussed it at the pre-session, but do it in a kind way because it's already a sensitive matter. So don't pin family against one another. That's a big no-no. So as we keep on going on these things we don't want to do during an in-person sales session or an IPS session is, and this actually has to do with just us as photographers, it's the expectations that we have. So you will get yourself in a lot of trouble if you judge your client and think, oh, they have the money to do whatever they want to do. Be very, very careful that you do not judge anyone because you have no clue what people value. You don't know until you get to know them. And this whole process is part of getting to know your clients, including the IPS session. So certainly don't think that you don't want to be too overly eager. You don't want to start suggesting things that are way out of their price range just because they drove up in a Bentley. Don't do it. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, if they drove up in a Bentley, then they can afford, XYZ. Not true. Again, people prioritize certain things. So, true story. I have had people drive up in, a 10 or 12-year-old Honda, drop $7,000. And I have actually had clients, specifically one in a Bentley, that had to split $2,000 between two separate cards. So guys, you cannot judge. Do not be overeager. Don't try to, again, kind of be salesy, which is what we talked about before. Don't sell to them based off of what you think they can afford. Let them tell you what they want, what they're looking for. If they have a budget, let them tell you what your budget is, and you help guide them. Do not be overeager. Do not judge just based off of the cover of a book. Sorry, I get my words flipped around. Do not judge a book based off of its cover. Don't ever do that because that's going to end up messing the whole IPS session up. And in the end, it leaves you feeling just icky and you don't want to do it. So avoid being overly eager based off of just maybe what the client wears, what the client does for work, what the client drives up in. Be very, very cautious about that. Be open to hearing what they want, what they need. So do not be overeager and do not judge anybody. The last area of things that we do not want to do during an IPS, an in-person sales session, is to get disappointed. Now, this solely focuses on us as the artist, as the photographer. Do not get upset if the sale did not go how you thought it was going to go. Now, guys, I'm really going to hound on this one because as artists, we tend to already be so overly critical of ourselves that like any bad news, even if it's not really bad news, but it feels like bad news to us, we tend to spiral out of control. And then it's like, well, I give up. I'm never going to photograph again. Guys, please do not do that. That is going to be the detriment of your business, of your mental health, of your well-being. The truth of the matter is that a sale is still a sale. Do not automatically think, oh, well, this is going to be a $4,000 sale when they come in and spend $1,800. Be like, oh my gosh, I'm just not a good photographer. I'm just not this. I could have done this better. I could have done this. Now, don't get me wrong. It's always good to be kind of examining yourself, examining your business, looking inward to see how you can improve. But do not let a sale dishearten you so much that you're like, I'm just going to go back to, I can't deal with IPS. I'm going to go back to selling digital files. It's at least $1,000 guaranteed every time I photograph. Don't do that because you're closing a very, very, very big door and you really haven't even gotten to that point where you can experience, what it's like to get a massive sale because you are doing IPS. So don't get disappointed. It's okay. And for those of you who have been in the industry, maybe you've been doing in-person sales sessions for a very, very long time. Maybe you're used to kind of getting those higher ticket sales, and then someone comes in and spends like a lower ticket sale, and you're just like, well, what did I do wrong? Don't do that. You have to remember, not every client is the same. Not everybody's budget is the same. Some people, that lower ticket sale that you might be like, over and kind of disappointed about and thinking, man, maybe it was my artwork, maybe it was this. For that client might have been something that they had been saving for a month and they are over the moon about it. So don't let your personal emotions cloud your judgment of the fact that you still made a sale. That's still a positive thing. Now, what about if you don't make a sale? So this has actually happened to me. I'm not saying it as if it's a surprise. Everything that I'm talking about, I've definitely gone through on my own. But sure, I've had people come in and they paid their session fee. They even made the trip to come and preview their images and still left without making a sale. And of course, my brain will definitely go through, man, how could I have made this better? But with time, with a lot of practice, I've learned that it's not an attack on me as an artist. It's something going on with the client. And you never know what's going on with each individual person. Some people may be open about stuff that they're going through. Some people may not be. So you really just don't know. But to one of the questions that was asked to me was, well, how do I price myself so that I'm not always coming in at a loss if they don't buy anything? Well, that's when you have to really start making some policies and setting those in place. If let them know that, hey, I have $1,000 minimum that you have to spend with me when you come in and book with me as your photographer. And then if you do not spend that minimum with me, I'm not keeping your images forever. Because guys, the truth is that we're not a bank. We can't hold on to images forever and ever and ever when nobody has placed a sale on them. That's not fair to us as business owners. We have to pay for the space. We have to pay for the hard drives. We're the ones who are losing out on that one. So you really have to come up with a policy, set that in place, and then, be able to stick to your guns on that. But the truth is that, not every sale is going to be a high ticket sale. Even like I said, if you're bringing in high ticket sales regularly, that's not going to be every single client. It's just not. That's not how the world works. So remember to not be, not internalize and be like, oh, well, I'm just a shitty photographer. That's why my sale is, woe is me. We all do it. I've been guilty of it too. Don't get in that mindset. Do not get filled with disappointment if a sale does not go how you want it to go. So that's going to wrap up my things to not do on an in-person sales session, an IPS session. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you do have any other questions about just the process in general or anything else in regards to business, I am more than happy to come on and address some of those questions. But I did also want to remind you that my husband has a teaching platform. It is called Artist of the Round Table. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because I know YouTube is super helpful. It's free information, it's free content, but it's very patchy. It's very difficult to get consistent education on even one topic without you having to spend hours searching for it. So my husband created Artist of the Roundtable, which is an education platform that goes through everything from marketing, pricing, branding, lighting, all of the basics. And I highly encourage you to check it out if you are looking to further your education in photography and build a stronger business overall. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.